Okay. Are we ready? Good. So exercise number 1, how many units were started into production if there were 0 units beginning work in process inventory? We could put 0 under beginning inventory. 1,100 units in ending work in process inventory. We could put that under ending. 21,500 that got completed and transferred out. Okay. So how do we solve the rest of this? Okay, we can add them together. That would be 22,600 units to account for, correct? Which is the same as units to account for down here. So how many units must have been started into production? It must be 22,600, right? Because they had nothing at the end, at the beginning of the period. That's what they had throughout the period, so they must have started them all during the period. Okay. That was not so bad. Let's check it. Nope, not what I want. I want this one. Okay, looks good. We've already done exercise 2. Let's go on to number 3. Okay, this one is only dealing in units here. This is just the first part of our calculation before we get into costs. Gentlemen. Okay, so what do we know here? Beginning inventory is 2,500 units. It tells us that the beginning inventory is 60% converted. Do we care? No, that only matters when we're talking about ending inventory. 18,000 units were started during the period. So what is our units to account for? 20,500, okay. Is that the same as units accounted for down here? All right, and 17,500 were completed and transferred. So how many units are in ending inventory? 3,000, the difference, right? Is our materials column going to be the same? Yes. Is our conversion transferred out going to be the same as materials transferred out? Yes. And why is it the same? Because whatever we transferred out had to be completely converted, right? Otherwise, the other department would send it back and say, what's up? You didn't finish. Okay, and then how do we get our equivalent units for conversion and ending inventory? Exactly. Adrian said we take our 3,000 units of ending inventory. They're 65% complete, so we multiply. We get 1,950. Okay, add them together. Did I do that right? 19,450. Okay. Questions? All right, well, moving on. We've got 19 exercises, so let's see how far we get here. We did number 4. A lot of these are quick, but there are some longer ones in here. Okay, number 5. 1,500 units in ending work in process. Oh, okay. 1,500 units in ending work in process. 30% complete. Transferred out 10,000 units. Okay, cost is $4 per unit for materials, $7 per unit for conversion. We have to figure out the cost of what got transferred out. So even though it doesn't say transferred out cost, that's what they want here. And the cost of what's still in process, which, as we know, we have to calculate materials separately from conversion. So starting with the cost of what got transferred out, how do we figure that out?
We add the for materials and 7 conversion.
Okay. So Zay says we take the $4 per unit materials cost, God bless you, plus the $7 per unit conversion cost. That gives us an $11 per unit cost, right? Multiply that by the number that got transferred out. So $11 times 10,000 units, $110,000. Okay. For ending work in process, how do we get our materials cost? Exactly. So Alex said 1,500 units times $4 for materials per unit. $6,000 of material costs and ending work in process inventory. How about the conversion costs?
1,500 times 7.
And then one more step in there.
Oh, the 30%.
Yes, the 30%. So 1,500 units in process. They're 30% complete. And then multiply that by $7 per unit for conversion costs, right? So the number of units that are in process times how complete they are, which is 30%, times the conversion cost per unit. So 3,150. Add those two together, we get total work in process $9,150. Sound good? 9,150. All right. Number 6. 2,400 units in ending work in process. Okay, no place to put that. They are 25% complete. Cost is $9,000. That's the total cost of our ending work in process inventory. There's a per unit material cost of $2. So they're kind of mixing things up here and giving us bits and pieces of information. What is the conversion cost per unit? Okay. Well, let's just take this one step at a time. How many units are in process? 2,400. Right, so at the end of the period, there are 2,400 units still in process. What was the cost of materials?
$2 per unit.
Exactly, $2 per unit. They didn't give us a total, but $2 per unit times 2,400 units is going to be $4,800, right? So $2 per unit times the 2,400 units, that's the $4,800 material cost. Okay, do we know the conversion cost?
No.
No. How can we figure it out? Okay, we know the total cost is 9,000. And according to Drew, we can then subtract the material cost from that because the rest of it is conversion costs. So total cost minus the materials costs gives us the conversion costs. Does that make sense to everybody? Total minus materials equals conversion. So how many equivalent units for conversion do we have?
600.
Okay, how'd you get that, Zay?
25% of 2,400.
Right, there were 2,400 units in process. They're 25% complete. Multiply 24 times 25%, 2,400 times 25%, we get 600. How do we get now our per unit cost for conversion?
4,200 divided by 600.
We take the conversion cost divided by the number of units, and we'll get $7 cost per unit for conversion. 4,200 divided by 600 gives us $7. Okay, this one was a little different. Any questions on these calculations? Going once, going twice. All right, moving on to number 7. How many units must be in ending inventory if beginning inventory was 15,000? Okay, let's put that right here under beginning. 55,000 units were started. We're going to put that under units started. 57,000 units were completed. You guessed it. We're going to put it right here under units completed and transferred. And then we'll just figure out the rest. So what is our units to account for? 70,000? Okay, beginning plus what was started. And what is our ending inventory then? 13,000. Remember those two formulas we saw at the very beginning that both had units to account for? Here they just mash those together into like one long formula. So we have beginning plus how many we started gives us units to account for. And then ending plus completed is units to account for, or you could go the opposite way and say units to account for minus completed gives us ending inventory. They're just trying to confuse us. I think they're succeeding. Any questions on number 7? Okay. Number 8, how many units must have been completed and transferred if beginning was 75,000? That'll go under beginning. Ending is 72,000. And we started 290,000. Okay. So what is our units to account for? Very good, Elvie, 365,000. So how many got completed and transferred out? 293,000, right? So we can add beginning to units started to get units to accounted for. When we subtract ending inventory, we get completed and transferred. Any questions? Okay, number 9. Okay, this one, we're only dealing in units here. Beginning inventory is 20,000. 55,000 were started. What is our units to account for? 75,000. Can that go down here under units accounted for? Sure can. And it says 57,000 units were completed. We'll put that under completed and transferred out. So what is our ending inventory? 18,000. Difference. Okay. All right. Total column is the same as the materials column. Conversion units that are completed is the same as material units that are completed. And how do we get equivalent units for conversion and ending inventory? 18,000 what? You got it, Josh. 35% complete times the 18,000 units that are in ending inventory. 6,300. And we can add that to what got transferred out to get our total conversion units equivalent. 63,300. Okay, I think you are all getting the hang of it here. So that was number 9 already. Told you they'll go fast, right? Most of them. Number 10. 85,000 units started. Beginning inventory is 0. So how many are there to account for? 85,000, right? Okay, here they're mixing things up a little bit. They told us the equivalent units for conversion is 9,000. So they gave this to us. God bless you. 67,000 got transferred out. Okay, we know that goes in all three columns. So how many are in ending inventory? 18,000, right? The difference. We know the materials column is the same as the totals column. So what is our total equivalent units for conversion? 76,000. All right, who said that? Okay, nice job, Josh. All right. We got that one right too. Number 11. 20,000 units were completed. 2,500 are still in process. That gives us 22,500 total, right? Put that over here under materials. Completed is the same all the way across. And it says, let's see, the units are 55% complete regard to conversion. So what is our equivalent units for conversion and ending work in process inventory? Okay, 1,375. Thank you, Elvie. So again, take the units in process times the percentage of completion. So we can add these together over here. We get 21,375. Check that one, looks good. We're up to number 12 already. Now here we're dealing only in the dollar amounts. We know that when we do these sorts of problems, if we're doing the whole thing from beginning to end, we start with units and then we go on to the costs, right? So here we're doing only the cost portion. And they tell us that the beginning inventory for this company is this in materials costs and this in conversion costs. Then during the period, they added this $4,231,392 in material costs. Then direct labor and manufacturing overhead. Okay, so how do we get our total materials costs? Okay, so we take what we started with at the beginning of the period, right? Whatever was carried over from the previous period, plus any new materials costs, and we get our total. So 4,462,824. Does that look right? Okay. You can do the same thing for conversion. The conversion costs we had that carried over from the previous period, plus any new direct labor and manufacturing overhead. 3,656,538. We can add those two totals together. 8,119,362. Let's see if that's correct. Okay, looks good. Questions? Okay. All right, moving on to 13 then. Started with 8,329 units. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's beginning. Okay. Then it started another 23,142. So you got to be a little careful here. Here they're saying this, they started the month, so that means they already had it. And then they started new units, right? So they used started in two different ways. The first one was beginning, the second one was what was added. And then their ending is 9,321 units. Okay. They give us the percentage of conversion, but it doesn't look like we even need that for this exercise. So how do we get units to account for?
At beginning and start.
Okay, beginning plus what they started, 31,471, which goes here. Right, units to account for. How do we get units transferred out? And subtract the ending inventory, right? And that'll tell us how much got transferred out. So 22,150. Okay. Questions? We did 14 already. Okay, 15. Yeah, 15 we're doing units in the first two sections, and then we're doing the costs down here. They kind of mixed up the order a little bit. They put cost per unit up here. Again, they're just trying to confuse us. But what can we say? It's a free textbook, right? So even the ones you pay for, they try to confuse you. Okay, so we have 35,920 units transferred out. We can put that in transferred out, all three columns. We have 6,150 units still in work in process. So we're going to put that under ending inventory. But not for conversion, right? Because we have to calculate that. They tell us the conversion is 35% complete. So we take those 6,150 units that are in process times the 35%, 2,152.50. I'm gonna say that we are rounding that up, but let's double check, make sure they rounded it up as well. Yes, 2,153. Okay. We can add up our total units of materials. $42,070. Our equivalent units for conversion, 38,073. By the way, we know the materials are always 100% complete, and they told us the conversion is 35% complete, right? So since this is percent complete, I just filled in those numbers. Cost per unit, we'll have to calculate. In fact, we could do that. Actually, they gave it to us. They told us $5 for materials and $8 for conversion. If they've given us the totals, then we'd have to divide by the number of units to get the per unit cost, but they just gave it to us. Okay, any questions so far? So we've got our units, we've got our cost per unit. How do we figure out the total cost of what got transferred out?
add the material and the conversion cost per unit together.
Okay.
Then you multiply it by the amount transferred out.
Okay, let's do that. So $13 is the total cost per unit times the number of units that got transferred out, $466,960. And in this case, they want us to go ahead and break it out between materials and conversion. So if we take just the materials cost times the number of units that got transferred out, we get 179,600. And we could take just the conversion cost per unit times the number that got transferred out, and we get 287,360. Okay. How can we double check these two numbers? We add them. Is that Elvie?
Yep.
Okay. If we add them, they should equal the total that got transferred out, right? So let's try. And yes, it works out. So good. Okay, then we need our ending work in process material cost. How do we get that? Okay. Materials units, 6,150 times the $5 material cost per unit. 30,750. Now this is a phantom cell over here. It looks like maybe something's supposed to go there, but that's just because it has lines on all four sides. So we don't actually have to put anything in there. But we do need to put ending work in process for conversion. How do we calculate that?
153 times the conversion cost per unit.
Okay, so the 2,153 equivalent units for conversion and ending work in process times the $8 conversion cost per unit, we get 17,224. How do we get our total ending work in process cost? We add the materials plus conversion, right? 47,974. Okay. So if we add these together, we get our total costs. Which should equal these two columns added together. So let's try that. Now the conversion column over here. Okay, so this is the cost of everything that got transferred out and still in work in process for conversion. Same thing for materials. Let's add those together. Ooh, doesn't look right. I could already tell that does not equal this. So there's a mistake. Did anybody catch my mistake? Oh, it's here. I added wrong. $514,934. Wow, I was way off. 514,934. That looks right. Let's add those two numbers. Okay. I think what I probably did is I subtracted over here instead of adding. So this looks right. Let's check with the ultimate authority here. Yep, 514,934. Okay. That was number 15. Oh, we still have a little bit of time. Keep going. Any questions on this one? All right, number 16. Okay, some journal entries. So this company assigns overhead at, oh yeah, Alan. Sure. Adrian,
So that,
yeah, it's fine.
oh, no, because. We got that one minute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have 10 minutes. No, yeah, sometimes I do, but I know that is the right clock up there. Thank you for pointing that out. You good, Alan? Okay. Any other questions, comments, commentary? So number 16. Okay, so the company applies overhead at a rate of $10 per machine hour. There were 3,500 machine hours in October. In the shaping department, 2,500 in packaging. So what would be the total manufacturing overhead for October for the shaping department? Okay, how'd you get that out? Okay, there were 3,500 machine hours in the department times $10 per hour. We can do the same thing for shaping. They had 2,500 hours times $10, so that's 25,000. Notice that for each department, it's going into work in process for that department, right? Because with process costing, we're tracking the work in process costs by department. All right, and so what was the total manufacturing overhead that got applied?
60,000.
60,000. Right, because our debits have to equal our credits. Any questions on 16? Okay, number 17. Journal entry to record factory wages of $28,000. Okay, that's already here. Incurred for a single production department, assuming that payment will be made in the next period. Okay, what would we debit? What would we credit?
And then factory wages,
Well, usually factory wages payable. I think in this case, they might have just called it wages payable, but either one is fine. So that's what gets the credit because liabilities increase on the credit side. What would we debit? Work in process, work in process. Right, work in process because it's being applied to a particular department's costs. What we're saying is we owe these workers $28,000. What is it for? It's for work in process. And again, I think it says, yeah, it says wages payable.
So clarify factory wages and then just record it as wages payable.
Yeah, and so I think factory wages payable, a little more specific. Either one's fine. It's not going to mess you up on the exercise set. Okay. Wow, we might just finish these last two and be done with the exercise set. Looks like we're going to have a short day on Thursday. Although I'll try to stretch things out, as much as I can. Okay. Journal entry to record the transfer of 3,000 units from the packaging department to finished goods. Packaging department to finished goods. Okay, so the totals are already here. What are we going to debit? What are we going to credit?
Finished goods inventory.
Right, since these costs are being transferred into the finished goods inventory account, we would debit it. What account would we credit?
Work in process.
Yes, work in process inventory, and we might specify packaging department. Okay. So once the job's done, we're taking it out of that final department, moving it into finished goods. All right. By the way, remember what type of account these inventory accounts are? What type of account?
Asset.
assets. Exactly. Okay, number 19, we sold 2,000 units at a cost of $8 per unit, sales price of $15 per unit. What would be the debits and the credits in this journal entry? Okay. Cost of goods sold. What else?
Finished goods inventory.
Okay, correct. You might remember from financial accounting, it was normally coming out of merchandise inventory. In this case, because we're a manufacturer, coming out of our finished goods inventory, and it's now the expense of cost of goods sold because we sold it. What's the other debit and credit we need?
Accounts receivable.
Okay, yep, accounts receivable or cash if the customer already paid. At $30,000, probably not cash. And sales or sales revenue, either will do. Here we go. Okay. There are a couple problems we'll go over on Thursday, so we'll have to finish up the chapter. We'll move on to the problem set. And again, it'll probably be a short day, but in the meantime, have a good couple days. I'll see you Thursday.